Hey guys, welcome to session number 5 of the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. Let's dive in. One man with one microphone, whose favorite childhood movie was Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Welcome to the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. Hey guys, welcome to session number 5 of the Trailer Music Composers Podcast. In this session, you can probably tell that I'm actually out and about walking around rather than in my studio with my Rode mic. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I got asked a question recently by one of my students. He said, why is done better than perfect? Now, one of the things I talk about when I'm doing my courses or tutorials on YouTube is done is better than perfect. I'm going to keep reiterating it. Now, the reason I say this is because perfection is a constantly shifting idea. If you chase perfection, you will find yourself chasing it for a very long time, and you'll end up spending an inordinate amount of time trying to perfect those tiny elements of your track. Whereas if you get to the point where you go, okay, it's not actually perfect in my mind, I say perfect with speech marks, but it's done, you know, it does the job, it captures the mood, I'm excited by it, it does all the things that I want it to do, you know, ticks those 5 rules of trailer music, you know, impact, and that, so I'm just going to send it off, done, there we go. Now, I'd never actually thought about why done is better than perfect, beyond the fact that my experience of trying to perfect a track means that I end up spending days on a piece of music for minimal gains, whereas if I just focus on getting it complete, you know, maybe like 80-90% complete, then it means that rather than me spending days trying to complete it, I am spending just a matter of hours. And that's really important. With my work schedule, I only work a few hours a day, if that. So if I was to spend, 12 to 20 hours on one track, I'd only get one track done every 1 to 2 weeks. And that's not great, I would expect myself to complete, at least have a sketched out track by the end of each session of writing. So, by the end of a week, I would have between 3 to 5 kind of done tracks, as it were, at least done where I can send them off to Vic, my publisher at Elephant Music, and he can do his excellent job of producing it with me and sort of guiding the track to final completion. Now, it wasn't until recently when I heard an interview with a really cool guy called James Wedmore. You might know him from his YouTube channel, but he also does lots of coaching and stuff, and he was talking about showing integrity to yourself, right? And basically what that translated into is when you say you're going to do something, do it. And he's not talking about like grand things, he's talking about small things. When you say you're going to sit down and write for 10 minutes, sit down and write for 10 minutes. When you say you're going to meet your friend at the train station at 10 in the morning, meet your friend at the train station at 10 in the morning. Now, he kind of goes into the psychology of this, which I'd never thought about, and it was amazing when he said it. I was like, of course, this is why I preach the way I do about, not religion, obviously, about writing and creativity, because when you get things done, you're showing up for yourself, right? When you sit down and write a track, you say to yourself, you sit down, I'm going to write a piece of music today, and then when you write a piece of music and it's done, it's like you can give yourself a tick, a pat on the back. You can trust yourself a little bit more. Now, how does that translate to your bigger career as a composer? Now, that translates because if you can trust yourself to complete the small tasks that you set each and every day, be it work-related or personal-related, then you can trust yourself that when you set a bigger goal, you will fulfill it. And that was what James Wedmore was saying about being able to prove to yourself that you can achieve these small wins each day, and then you will give yourself the confidence to know that when you sit down and say, you know what, I'm going to get 20 trailer placements this year, you have confidence in yourself that you're going to achieve that. And that is huge. And I didn't realise that I was following that guideline the entirety of my career. I always focus on the small wins. I'd always spend each day, or as much as I could, writing a little piece of music and trying to get things finished and out the door. Partly because of my views on inspiration and creativity are, it's a constant flow. If you're not letting things go, you're therefore not letting things come in. So if you're spending your time trying to perfect your synth line from bar 38 to 42 with all the various filter sweeps and effects and whatnot until you find the exact perfect patch, you're not letting the creativity and the inspiration through. You're preventing it because you're not letting that track out. Okay? You're kind of blocking the flow. And I didn't really realise that actually that also parallels to you're also not giving yourself proof of your ability to be successful. Because you're saying to yourself, you know what, I just can't finish music. And then you'll do it again. You'll start another track because you didn't finish that last one. I'll start another track and you'll spend days perfecting it, and then you won't finish it, and you'll say, oh, you know what, I still just can't finish a piece of music. And I know a lot of my students suffer from this. Oh, how do you finish so many pieces of music? You know what, I'm not a perfectionist. I just produce a track to the point where I think, you know what, this is exciting, and then I send it off. Regardless, I've, embarrassingly enough, had stems sent back from Toby Mason, who mixes and masters most of my stuff, where there's audio files that I haven't faded at the end of the beginning, so you get all these little clicks and pops. But funnily enough, it kind of suits the way I write. But that's the key to it, is done is better than perfect. Show yourself, give yourself proof that you can actually do the small goals, achieve the small goals that you set. So next time you sit down to write a piece of music, you say, hey, you know what, I'm going to write a piece of piano music today. Sit down and write it. Just finish it. Go from start to finish. Get your track from 0 to 2 minutes 20, and then stop. Done. And then you can go, you know what, I can take that off the list. Yeah, you can go back and edit it, but that's not the point. That's not writing a piece of piano music. It's something else altogether. And that's the trick to my productivity, or one of the tricks to my productivity, is that I hold this idea of getting things done over getting things perfect, because perfect is always changing. I mean, how many times have you sat down and you spent hours on a track, only the next day to listen back to it and go, what was I wasting my time on? This track is rubbish. And you feel naff as a result of it. Whereas since I've switched it and said to myself, you know what, I'm going to spend a couple of hours tops producing a track and then stop, and then I listen to it the next day, almost always I listen to it and go, hey, this track's got potential. Do you see what I'm saying? So, my question to you is, can you switch it for yourself? Can you prove to yourself that you can achieve these small goals, so that when you take my course or somebody else's course, or even when you're pitching to a publisher, you can believe that you are actually going to get that publisher's sign off on your track, and therefore an editor's sign off on the track, and therefore the paying client's sign off on track, and therefore that picture of that poster of that film on your website, on your showreel. Hooray! And then that bump in your paycheck. Because you showed up for yourself on the small things. You showed up for yourself by completing a track, not to perfection, to the point where you go, yeah, this rocks. I mean, I could think of countless examples, not just in my work, but of, okay, here's a good one, the Beach Boys. Beach Boys was on in my house growing up all the time, and Brian Wilson sort of lauded as a musical genius, and the Beach Boys, amazing. Obviously I don't want to get into the Beatles Beach Boys thing. They're both amazing, but I'm talking about the Beach Boys here because when I was a teenager, one of my friends got the a cappella sessions from Pet Sounds, which was just the voice recordings. And we listened to it and we're like, wait, they're out of tune. And they're kind of out of time. And it was amazing to me because it didn't matter. The feeling was captured to the point where it didn't matter if it's about the timing and the tuning. And I remember hearing an interview with Billy Corgan of the Smashing Pumpkins when he was recording, I think it was Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, and he was saying that actually the producer, I can't remember who it was, I don't think it was Butch Vig on that one, anyway, whoever was producing Melancholy, he took the vocal takes that were the most emotional over the ones that were the most technically good. So if there was a bit of screeching on the vocals, he took that because that captured the emotion over the one that was more in tune, more in time. And that's the approach I suggest you take with your music. Get it done. Capture yourself and your emotion in your music, and then send it on its way so that you can then move on to the next. Send it on its way, move it on to the next, send it on its way. Who cares if there's a little mistake in it, you know? Call me, you know, I know I'm going to annoy some people who are very, very keen on getting their tracks perfect and amazing, and, you know, well done sirs and madams for doing that, because I don't have the patience to do that. I just want to get tracks out and into the world, and that is why I always say done is better than perfect, because you then prove to yourself you are worthy of the goals that you set yourself in the future. Be that goal getting a single track placed on a single piece of video, or be that goal winning awards, getting 10s and 20s of, you know, placements a year in trailers. And to be honest with you, that's kind of why I'm walking around in a wood next to a golf course near my house holding my phone. You know, I could have waited to get back to my studio where I can put this through a compressor, give it a noise gate, you know, all that business, make sure it's nice and clean. And to be honest, my recordings of my voice aren't even that good anyway. But I wanted to get this done. Because, you know what, I've listened to tons of podcasts where they're over a Skype connection and the connection is terrible, but it doesn't matter. Because you're listening to the content, you're listening to the heart of what they're saying above and beyond the finished product. I remember when I was at college, this was the first time I'd ever heard this saying, and, you know, I think this is a genius saying, you can't polish a turd. If the heart of what you're producing and saying isn't good, then no matter how perfect you make it with your production, etc., it doesn't matter. It's still going to be a polished turd, isn't it? Now I'm not saying that your writing is a turd. I feel like I'm going on a tangent now. But what I'm trying to say is focus on the real core of your music, the real core of what you're trying to say with your creativity, and you will find the rest of it just falls into place. You know, if you're worried about your ability to mix and to master, don't worry, most publishers have mastering engineers, and I am blessed to have a publisher who also pays for my tracks to be mixed, because although yes, I can do the balancing stuff, and I can mix it to a level that I'm happy with, I'm not going to pretend to be that level of mixing and mastering at all, because I want to focus on the writing. You know, that's my, I was going to say that's my jam, but it's not really. It's I'd say it's more my peanut butter, and that's what you need to do. Focus on those 5, remember those 5 rules I talked about, the heart of what you're trying to say with your music, getting yourself and your impact into your tracks. Don't try and perfect everything that you do, because especially when you're dealing with, you know, some of my trailer queues have got sort of 120 tracks. How am I going to sit there and perfect all of those? I'm not going to bother. I'm going to make sure they all have the gist of what I'm trying to do. Now, if you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe. I'd love to have you listening each week to my ramblings, and obviously leave a review of the podcast. And of course, you can go on over to YouTube and subscribe to my YouTube channel, where I get into more detail about actual production and writing, so you can see me sort of doing walkthroughs of my cues, trying to reveal to you all the tricks I do, because you know what, they're not tricks. you'll notice there's certain ways I write, and I'm not hiding anything. I want to show you everything. And if you want more, you can head over to the Trailer Music School, where I've got tons of courses. Well, it's a membership site, so you sign up monthly or annually to get access to all my courses and the fantastic community of other composers we have, who are all so supportive. We have monthly calls and monthly briefs where I set a brief and everyone produces a track, and then we feedback, and if there's anyone that shows any promise to maybe produce more work along that vein, then perhaps I get into touch with them about maybe taking them further. Thank you so much for taking the time to listening to this. I am very, very grateful, and I do hope you enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.